The amount of times Thor's trying to give a rousing speech and it falls flat.
Mm-hmm.
That happens every single time. That happens I think more than 4 times.
The one joke that didn't get old for me was the screaming goats. I don't know why. I have a monkey brain and it made me laugh. Okay, I just like the screaming goats.
There was one of those that really got me.
The one where they went into the shadow realm.
Yeah.
Thor: Love and Thunder.
Thor: Love and Thunder. Welcome.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 20. We're at the big 2-0. So
Alrighty.
looking good. I think 25. Maybe we should do a special thing, like an event, a Q&A to our maybe 2 Twitter fans. Or
Yeah, sure. Why not? That sounds fun.
That would be fun if we did that. But Thor: Love and Thunder. Let's get right into the movie.
My bar was fairly low for it, and about reached it. It's all right, I guess.
What do you think, though, of the director, Taika Waititi?
I love him as a
I hope
director.
I said his name right, because I love him.
I think you got it right. But I love the director. However, this movie I'm disappointed with this movie only because it's Taika Waititi, and I expected more from him.
He has one of my favorite movies, Jojo Rabbit, is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite Marvel movies, Thor Ragnarok. It's a perfect Marvel movie. It's definitely in my top 3. I would have to go, which one's the best? But definitely in my top 3 Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
And he's directing this one as well. And it seemed like he had all creative control over it. I don't think Marvel was looking over his back, changing things much. It seemed like he had a lot of creative freedom. Did you see that as well?
I think so. There was also some interviews with him or one of the actors, I believe it was Chris Hemsworth, saying that the kind of goal was, Taika Waititi's goal was putting in jokes and scenes and things that like a 7-year-old would like and write.
Right.
That was the tone of it.
Which did generally come across. I saw that.
Yeah.
Oh, let's get right into our rating of this.
Sure.
Let's do that.
I know that we've actually neglected, I think, to explain our rating system because to most people that just like casually watch or see one episode.
Yeah, we explained like way back in episode 1 or 2. We should.
Yeah. So I know most people go like, oh, why is he doing like a 0.07 kind of thing? Like, However, our system is actually 5 separate categories that we rate between 1 to 10, and then we average those 5 categories together to come up with our main score. For me personally, I typically rate things on a 0.25 basis, so it can be 5, 5.25, 5.5, 5.75, and then 6.
Yeah.
Typically where I land out.
Right. I get more wild. I do
Sure.
anything really. But let's get to it. So our 5 categories, and we'll give our overall rating of Thor. I almost said Ragnarok. Thor: Love and Thunder. What's your category by? So emotional impact. What did you give it out of 10?
Gave it just an even 5.
Even 5.
Yeah.
Okay. I gave it a 5.75. A little bit higher.
A little bit higher.
What about characters?
Characters, I gave a 4.
Okay. I gave characters a 4.25. Just again like 0.25 high, or the 0.75 with the other one. Now plot. What'd you give plot?
4.25.
I gave it a 4.
Okay.
Dialogue.
5.75.
5.5 for me. We are very close on all of these. And then
Yeah.
finally, the last category, cinematography.
6.25.
I give it a 7.
Okay.
So what is your total score for Thor: Love and Thunder? Put it on the ceiling.
5.05.
5.05. Okay. My total out of 10 is 5.3. So we're very close.
Yeah. I think we both walked out of the theater thinking about like, it's a real
I think I personally enjoyed it a bit more than you in some sense.
Yeah.
More so because our initial reaction of it, I don't know why, but my initial reaction was more positive. That the more I thought about it, the more it went down just slightly. But I didn't have a bad time. It wasn't I didn't genuinely not enjoy myself. So I wouldn't say in that sense I wasn't angry. I wasn't mad. Like, oh, did you feel like actually that the movie was actually bad? Like you're gonna go out of your way, or what's your general feel of it? How can you describe it?
I guess my general feeling was like this movie is not for me. I just thought I wasn't the target audience because most of the jokes didn't land for me. A couple of them did. Like a couple of them got a good chuckle or two. But overall, most of the jokes didn't land. Like I thought the beginning with the Guardians of the Galaxy was just so awkward. Like it looked, it felt, it sounded like odd. I didn't laugh a single time with Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's a major part of the plot is the jokes.
Yeah.
They really hammered in on. It seemed like someone said this before, I'm sure, but it seemed like they were afraid to not have the audience laugh like every minute or two. Like, there was no breather like there was in Ragnarok, or the style of the serious moments that happened. Like Jane has cancer, joke a minute or two later. It was too mixed with jokes, which, by the way...
by the way, if it's not clear by now, spoiler warning.
Yeah, spoilers. Always spoilers.
Yeah.
Unless said otherwise, right?
Yeah, we're normally pretty bad at that. I'm sorry. But I'll try to do better. But anyway, spoiler from here on out.
Jane has cancer. And it's a very serious topic.
Yeah.
And there's one, I guess, emotional scene where Thor's like, because I love you, that's why I don't want you coming out to battle with me while you have cancer. But the jokes seem to override the moments where you could actually look at it and appreciate and get involved in the movie a lot.
Plenty of times. Well, actually, let's go right into emotional impact since we're kind of already talking about it.
How we feel, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that really undercut my emotional investment in the movie is how many times the jokes seem to come at the expense of the character. And when I mean that, it comes at the expense of character consistency. So things where a character shouldn't do that because it's not how the character's been established, and yet they do it anyway because it's the joke. Example being how in the beginning, the first Thor movie, the reason why he's stripped of his powers is because he's bombastic. He destroys all these things and doesn't care about collateral damage, and too hot-headed, and doesn't think about things around him. And by the end, he learns that, and even in Thor: The Dark World, like he steps away from.
Pause a second. Do you think this movie's worse than Dark World?
No.
Okay. All right. You can continue.
No,
You're safe.
no,
You're safe.
no, I'm not. I'm not.
It's not that bad at all.
No, it's not that bad.
All right.
But in Thor: The Dark World, there was a scene where he moves away from a group of people, then summons the Bifrost because he doesn't want to cause damage to the area. And that happens several times. Or when he has a bit more tact and he's a bit more careful with his powers because he knows how strong he is. And basically showing that he's starting to care about others around him and is aware. And in this movie, he's in the middle of a building and he just summons the Bifrost in the middle.
For the joke, right?
For the joke. And yes, haha, funny. He's awkward, he's fine with it, but Thor knows better than that. He's learned. He's had 3 other movies before this. He should know better. Or Valkyrie. When Thor, for some reason, is talking to the somehow he has the power to talk to children, just project himself in front of the children somewhere across the galaxy. All right. But he's talking to them and trying to comfort them. And Valkyrie is tickling him while he's talking to him.
Getting him out of that scene with the children, which was actually interesting.
Yeah,
that was
but
an
also
interesting scene.
They should be concerned for the children, and
the fact that
she should care.
That. Yeah,
she seems to care about these children and wants to get them back and afraid for their lives. And yet she's not messing with Thor. She's messing with those children too. And it's a really don't be a dick, Valkyrie. This is not that moment. Don't do that. I don't think she would honestly do that, but the movie wanted the joke.
It subverts that just for the joke. It goes out of its way to find a joke where there shouldn't be a joke.
Yes, and it betrays the character while doing so. And that happens several times. Almost every character, there's a bunch of things like that where it doesn't feel authentic to the character.
I do want to add some chocolate to your syrup. Okay.
Okay.
Does anyone like that saying? Those I came up with.
I don't.
Of my head. Okay. So I'm gonna add some chocolate to that syrup here. Oh, yours isn't even syrup. What you said was not sweet about the movie. It was actually I need a different analogy.
Yeah, you're saying doesn't work.
It doesn't work here, but in another situation I'll use it and it'll work great. But us giving it a 5 means very neutral. That's our neutral zone. There's things we liked, things we didn't like. I'm speaking for you here, but you agree with that general sentiment.
Yeah, no. 5 is... I don't really like it. I don't really dislike it. It is smack dab the middle. It's a movie.
Yeah, no, I could complain a lot, and I will eventually throughout this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where, that humor was too much to the point where and I think you'd agree, the subversion of the joke, right? Of you don't expect the joke to come. They subverted so often that the subversion itself became expected.
Yeah.
I said that about, I think, Pariah when we reviewed that as well.
You did. That's like,
It's one of my critiques of stuff like that, when you do it too much. So, for example, the scene we have with Thor going in the very beginning, helping the Guardians and saving this planet, not saving this tribe, I don't know what you call them, and going to that glass temple thing, coming out and giving the speech. I think everyone can predict, the thing's going to collapse behind him, and it's going to be a joke. That's just one example, but...
Well, it also... There's several jokes that happen just so many times, it really loses its steam. So the amount of times Thor's trying to give a rousing speech and it falls flat. That happens every single time. That happens, like, I think more than 4 times.
The one joke that didn't get old for me was the screaming goats. I don't know why. I have a monkey brain, and it made me laugh, okay? I just like the screaming goats.
There was one of those that really got me.
The one where they went into the shadow realm.
Yeah, they hit the planet. That was good.
That was funny.
That was really good.
But that's what I mean. You got to give the mix of, there were genuine moments where I chuckled, and I was like, that's funny. That's funny. But I think the reason I chuckled is because there were 1,000 jokes.
Yeah.
There were so many jokes, it's hard not to laugh because there's that many. Does that make sense? It's kind of like, if you toss a ton.
It was also the hammer. The hammer and Storm... am I saying it right? Oh, God.
The other hammer.
There's Mjolnir, and then there's Stormbreaker.
Stormbreaker.
There you go. Saved it. How he's treating him like an ex-lover, and how many times Stormbreaker's jealous and one of those. Funny. It keeps going through the whole movie. It's like it gets real old real quick.
A little asterisk there in that. I like the trope. So the trope change they did to the love triangle, where it's now a hammer, it's a new interesting concept of not just funny, but it was genuinely like, yeah, this is his hammer that he's loved all of his life. That's an actual conflict I could see happening in this crazy movie that was given to us. I like that concept. Execution wise, a bit too much. Didn't hate it. Didn't love it. I was like, okay.
Yeah, so, I just thought it was too much. So I edge on the side of, too much.
So I guess the summary, emotionally speaking, is we both felt like it was funny at times, but overall did it too much, and the
tone didn't blend. Yeah. So when it wanted to be serious, it undercut itself, and just there were not enough quiet breathing moments for the jokes to really hit.
Correct.
Because a lot of what made Ragnarok so great is the really funny scene, and then goes right down to a somber scene and a real quiet moment, and you get that real serious moment, and then that contrast, and makes it a far more enjoyable time. Where this one's just at like a 11 constantly.
Like Odin dies in Ragnarok, and there's breathing room. It impacts the story.
A real emotional moment between him and Loki.
Ooh,
really good.
Let's digest that. Yeah.
But also epic scenes. So instead of just funny, there's also the awesome battle, and it's really the battle itself is taken seriously and epic, and it's not undercut with a joke.
Yeah.
Or when it is, it's sparingly, like the Hulk falling, just completely collapse on the ground.
That is the funniest scene.
But
in Marvel.
That was the joke. That was the joke in the fight scene.
Yep.
There's not much else. But that's memorable because the rest of it is fairly serious.
Yeah.
Where this one, it's constant.
So funny though. Ugh.
That was pretty funny.
I want to move into characters.
Yeah, let's move into the characters.
I want to talk about the most disappointing character.
Who?
By far, the biggest downgrade from the previous movie is Korg.
Yeah, too much Korg.
Korg in Ragnarok was like a perfectly crafted recipe of just enough Korg, so funny here and there, and every line just was banger after banger after banger. And then with Thor: Love and Thunder, Korg's in it seemingly a lot more, and the whole head thing and the constant joke, the timing was off, the constant jokes were off, they didn't hit as much, and I felt less love for Korg, and I love Korg, so I was sad.
He's an example of something I want to get into a little later, he was a real show of, this movie was very much a tell, don't show. Where it should be show, don't tell. I think that there's one of my biggest problems with this movie. How many times that Korg is just narrating what we're supposed to feel and what the characters are feeling. It feels really lazy. Like Korg's line with Valkyrie, when he just goes on that spiel of like, oh, are you being emotionally distant because you lost your other previous Valkyrie girlfriend, or are afraid to get attached to anyone else, and instead of growing attachment, you're actually drinking to the bottom of the bottle? And she's like, yep. Okay.
Right. You don't feel
Like,
anything because they didn't show that, right?
you should show that. Like, I know it's supposed to be a joke, but the joke doesn't land.
No.
So if the joke doesn't land, it's kind of a disservice to the character.
Yeah. What did you think about Valkyrie's character?
Definitely one of the least enjoyable. Like, there's just not much going for her.
Yeah.
And I do think some of it is the acting. She doesn't have many facial expressions.
What they give her, really?
That's, I guess, true, but she just doesn't look.
I would say something more in the acting if there was more there, as in far as a conflict. Like, her conflict was literally Korg telling her
that she has a conflict.
Are you distant about we don't understand it because we're not shown anything in the movie. Her whole thing is, I'm going to tickle Thor's nose and I'll be here in the fight. It just wasn't impactful or emotional because how can you connect with her with what they gave you, right?
I guess so.
Regardless, it's just her. I think someone you mentioned when we were talking about this briefly that you were thinking you weren't going to like, but you actually didn't mind at all was Jane.
Yeah, actually. I seeing the trailers, I thought, oh, I'm not going to like the Jane Foster becoming the new Thor. Didn't mind it. I thought it was one of the least bad aspects of the movie.
The least bad?
Yeah.
Man, I think you should give this a 5.5. Could you give it more 5.05? 5.05, not 5.5. Very different scores. But 5. Explain to me why you gave it the 0.05 and it didn't go to the 4 range. Come on, give some positive vibes.
I'm focusing on the negatives, but
yeah,
there's some jokes there. I mean, many of the characters are charming. I actually quite liked some of the Jane scenes of her being like an awkward superhero and trying to get the line out, and how she actually has some chemistry with Thor, other than when they just outright say it and they just have these flashbacks where, again, they're telling, not showing.
Did you like Jane's hammer?
Oh, yeah. That was
I mean,
cool.
I'm not saying Mjolnir because it's now we're saying James' version of Mjolnir where it shoots out and comes back.
It's so cool. I like the broken parts of the hammer, and then they can operate independently and come back together.
Yeah.
That is a super cool concept.
Yeah, I really like that, actually. I was like, oh, that's fun.
It reminds me of a Netflix show,
That reminds you of a Netflix show?
Seven, like Scissor 7 or something.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Never seen it, though.
It's okay. It's content. The last season that came out was pretty enjoyable. It's mostly comedy, mostly just silly stuff. But the cool idea from that is a sword that's really shattered into pieces. Okay. But through some kind of magic or mental, it holds itself together. So it can operate independently, just like Thor's hammer.
Very cool.
And so there's some really cool scenes, like in a sword clash, and then just the part where it's connecting moves apart and then back together, so you can go through people's swords, things like that. It's a cool concept.
That is cool. Mm-hmm. While we're on Jane as well, I will say this is more plot issue, but I'll say this. I'll mention this briefly. I didn't love how they showed us how she, and I'm saying this, I love shows and I love that, but the fact that they showed us how she got Mjolnir in the first 10 minutes of the movie, I thought it would have probably been better if she already had Mjolnir, and it's kind of confusing how she's there, and then it does the backtrack of it's explained to us as the movie goes on. Like it connects later rather than us show. It's kind of a little boring of seeing her, how she gets Mjolnir, rather than it would have been more of a shock if he's fighting and then we see it coming because they showed us it, and then she pops down and helps him fight, rather than if she popped down and helps fight and we're like, how'd that happen? Obviously it's in the trailer and not the biggest surprise, but would have been interesting. But what did you think about the big man himself, Thor?
If this was isolated, if this was just an isolated movie, the MCU, like all the previous Thor movies are around. Chris Hemsworth is charming. Like he has that charm. He acts very well. It's great acting, all that stuff. But in the context of the MCU movie, he feels like he's moving backwards on character. Like how I mentioned before, of how he makes some decisions that he would have made in the first Thor movie. Or he just feels really aimless, where in Ragnarok he seemed to have a direction. And then, Endgame really undercut him. And then this movie further, like even by the end of the movie where he now has a daughter type thing, but still feels really aimless.
What do you think about his motive here from not feeling anything to searching for this piece of I want to feel shitty again, essentially? Of
He already had that. He had that in Infinity War. Of he was closing himself off because I've lost everything. What more could I lose? And it very much unfeeling and uncaring. And then he went through a depression arc, and then back the other side. So it just felt
they're going to turn a fifth movie out of him too. So.
They set up for 3 movies of Thor becoming King of Asgard and becoming a good person and good leader. And then it just went right off the cliff, and this one's no different. So this is almost a continuation of Endgame. The Endgame's problems.
Yep. And I think Thor peaked in both Infinity War and Ragnarok, where he just excelled. It was so cool to see.
Yeah.
A little disappointing there. But what about the villain of the story? Christian Bale himself, he plays Gorr the God Butcher. Is that it? Or the God Slayer? It's God Butcher,
God
right?
Butcher. So
Gorr the God Butcher. What are your thoughts on him?
So I've heard thoughts on the internet. So I have not read any comics on Gorr or Thor comics in general, but I hear that Gorr looks very different in the comics, and people were upset that they couldn't make him look more comic accurate. However, no knowledge of the comics, I thought he did pretty well, and Christian Bale's a great actor, so he definitely felt odd. He felt odd in this movie. He felt out of place because the rest of the movie is really silly, campy, cheesy, and he seemed
he was going for an Oscar nomination. Everyone else was going for have a good, hey, here we go. They're 2 different movies essentially.
Yeah, it felt weird, but good. He's definitely a positive.
Christian Bale, yeah.
It's a positive aspect of it. So yeah, no, I think he did well. But
not huge complaints with him.
No, not really any huge complaints. But let's go into the plot.
Let's do it. Oh, what? Before we do that, we have to mention the best character in the movie was Matt Damon. Matt Damon was hilarious. I thought I really appreciated his 2 scenes, the callback to the previous movie, and then also when everything. There's all this chaos. He's like, we need art in the times of chaos. We need art. That's what I'm saying. Some of the jokes really did hit, and I chuckled. Yeah. But all right, plot time.
All right, so. What did you actually what did you think about the plot in general? Compare this one to Ragnarok.
Oh, compared to Ragnarok, it's leagues different. Mm-hmm. If I'm describing Love and Thunder's plot, it's poor. It's poor, and the part of that comes from the mixture of jokes being too much is surface level reason of it's too much, but a lot of it comes down to the elements that the goals of the movie and the MacGuffins essentially that they use, the Eternity. Was that what it was called? The Eternity?
Eternity is a character.
Eternity, the character, right? Didn't like that for several reasons, and didn't love the motivation of... there was a comment. This is not my... I have this written down, for example. This movie could have been so much more is what disappoints me as well. But there's a comment by... The guy's YouTube name is Gentleman J. It was on... a YouTube, some reviews there. I was looking through the comment section, and he said this. He said, "Imagine if Gorr the God Butcher, always meant to bring his daughter back. That was always his intention. But the only way to do this was to go to the center of the universe where the gods get their power from. So he has to butcher gods to get there to save his daughter, while Thor has to contemplate: do I protect these elite, entitled gods?" Or the man who's trying to bring his daughter back. And so where the villain has a powerful point, that, I read that comment and went, oh, that would have been a fantastic plot.
And man, what a difference of the title would be. Love, his daughter, versus Thunder. Love and Thunder, the gods. The gods are his daughter.
Okay. So I read that comment and went, wow, this guy just wrote it better than Marvel did, in my opinion.
Well, especially by the end, kind of thinking to myself, yeah, why wasn't your intention to bring your daughter back? Like, you're going to say, like, kill all the gods. Like,
Yeah, you question that big time.
Like,
Isn't that a huge thing? Like that, you
once
love
you
your
know
daughter.
that that's there, like, just wish your daughter back.
Exactly. Yeah, I was blown away by that comment personally. I was like, wow, that I would have loved that movie.
Yeah.
And Eternity, the whole thing, it adds a lot of problems to like why wasn't this mentioned before?
Well, the thing is, it's not that it was unknown before. Clearly, all the gods knew it.
Right.
It's legislate. It's not unknown. Why didn't Thanos go for it?
Right.
It's completely undefended. Like, you just need the Bifrost.
Yep.
And like, oh, it was secret. It's a key. You look at the front door, like, it's the Bifrost symbol. It's on the, like, you can figure it out. You look at the front door, go, oh, that's the symbol what the Bifrost makes.
Do the thing.
Do the thing. Go get, like, it's not only Stormbreaker that can create the Bifrost. Like, you could figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Heimdall was able to do it. There was a machine that could do it.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah.
But
what did you think about the other plot direction of didn't officially kill Zeus, but the whole god scene and the twist they put on that? What did you think?
oh, I didn't like the whole gods, like the whole god planet, the whole thing in general.
Can you give it one thing of credit though? Of Doctor Strange, the most recent Marvel movie prior, it's called Multiverse of Madness. Thor: Love and Thunder significantly had more madness in like
Yeah.
it's definitely more fun than Multiverse of Madness in that sense of there's a lot, they went to more planets, a lot more was going on than a movie literally titled Multiverse of Madness, which is one thing to give it credit for. At least it was fun and crazy.
Sure. I just thought the costumes looked really cheap, and they looked.
Let's talk about that.
It looked like a theme park
Okay.
costume. Like the Russell Crowe, was it? Or no, it wasn't. Who was?
Yeah, Russell Crowe.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Russell Crowe as Zeus. Did not work at all. Like, I thought that was terrible casting, and his accent was weird. His look was just bad. He looked cheap. Like all of the god and that whole thing just looked cheap and bad. The Thunderbolt just looked stupid.
I didn't mind the costumes. I actually I thought I'm lumping that in cinematography, just how things
Sure.
are visualized and whatnot. But I appreciated the costumes and the visuals. It was very flamboyant, bright, vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
It was the tone of the movie. If it was a different movie, I would have been more bothered. But I liked how I liked the uniqueness and the kind of excitement it brought you. And the costumes were like ridiculous in a fun way, which is the tone of the movie. So I'm not gonna harp on it for that.
I just didn't think it looked that cool. So like Thor's new costume, I thought looked worse.
Okay. Well, how about the Shadow Realm? Was that cool?
That was cool.
All right, we can agree there.
I thought they looked pretty cool. The monsters are really forgettable, but the look of Gorr was really cool, and him jumping in and out, and like the ambiance, that was neat.
As you mentioned, he was supposed to be an alien, right? In that comics, he's an alien creature. Yeah. I liked his look. Did you like his look?
I liked it well enough. Yeah.
And especially with Christian Bale's acting, his facial expressions are great. Sure. I think your favorite scene, we mentioned real quick, your favorite scene was the Shadow Realm where he was pushing, he was toying with them.
Yeah.
When he had them all captured and strung up.
I liked the best part of the movie for me was when they went to the black and white planet. There's a bunch of little things like my favorite joke was the goat screaming when they hit the small planet. That was my favorite joke of the whole movie. Yeah. But then all the little stuff of how it cinematography wise, how it looked, the black and white stuff, and how when Jane used Thor's hammer's light, it brought color to it. Cool touch. I liked Gorr's scenes and fights when he's toying with all of them. Of just like he breaks their character down, then it's like, and away you go, and next one.
Yeah, that was cool.
So
I think I love that joke as well. One that also really got me. I don't know why, but when Thor was saying, "Oh yeah, this I don't mean eat the children." Those were very regrettable times, or something like that. I laughed at that because it was just fun to me. But Shadow Realm, you like the look of that. You like the feel. Was there cinematography more so? I think that really covers it. It was shot well enough. I think the rainbow stuff with the goats.
I think
the Rainbow Road.
I liked
Little Mario Kart.
That was my favorite thing of visual wise was the boat and the goats dragging the boat across the Bifrost Bridge.
Yeah.
That was cool looking. I
Nice.
thought that was neat.
Nice.
But yeah, I just didn't think the set or costumes looked as good as others. I thought it was a step down.
I think Ragnarok's better visually speaking, but still, it's fun.
Yeah.
But I see your point. It can be too much. It could be not your thing.
The last touch on cinematography is the fight scenes and the music were fine, but significant step down from Ragnarok.
Yep, agreed.
Like there wasn't really any fight scenes that were memorable, unlike Ragnarok where plenty.
The music didn't stand out to me. Did it stand out to you at all?
Yeah, they had some good songs in there too. Like they had some big songs, but I don't remember them. Which
is odd.
Yeah. So the music clearly didn't fit as well as in Ragnarok, where Ragnarok at least has two great like fight scenes and music where you know
you could still think
well,
about
that
it.
that was Taika Waititi made the movie for that song effectively.
Yeah. Which, with all this being said, we still love you, Taika. It's
yeah. No, I'm still gonna
loving it.
watch whatever he makes.
Yeah.
Like he's a great.
I think he's
a great
a genius.
director.
Just this one didn't hit.
Yeah, I mean, you can't all have winners.
Yeah.
So, but I have a question for you. I thought would be interesting.
It's probably not.
All right, fine. What MCU character do you think, if added, would make the movie significantly better?
Hulk.
Hulk again.
Because if they fixed Hulk, because I didn't like the direction you went, and Ragnarok was so good, so they have the most chemistry since we've already seen them in prior movies together. And he's one of the few that would make sense. Like, who else would make sense in that movie? I don't know. We just saw Doctor Strange. I kind of lost him. So who else would make sense? Spider-Man comes from out of nowhere? I don't think so. And you got Bruce Banner's one of the originals with Thor. So they go way back.
I think Falcon would be great.
Explain.
The contrast. Everyone's like gods and all this, or him or Clint. Clint Barton would be just so good of like the humor of it. Of like I could just imagine Hawkeye just going like, "Why the hell am I here?"
Got you. Yeah.
And also you could have because they're playing with the gods things. He could have a real fun thing with him and like Achilles or something, and like one of the godly archers. And so the thing that would make him relevant in the fights he would from the gods he would steal like this magical bow and arrow, and he would do that. But just how That's much cool. Of a step down in power he would be, and how out of place he would be, it would add a lot to that movie.
Gotcha. Okay, I see that.
So
yeah, Hulk was my knee-jerk reaction. I might agree with you there. That's a good answer too.
Him or like Sam also has just some good sass that I think would add well to it.
Okay, that would be cool. Well, I mean, since we're talking about more general things, I had a big question for you on Phase 4. Phase 4, it's the multiverse now. So there's a lot of content right now, and with Phase 4, does it seem like they don't? Does it seem a little aimless to you? Do you have anything to mention about it that you're frustrated about?
It definitely does seem aimless. Like Guardians of the Galaxy dropped, like they had a post-credit scene of the golden guy, Adam, I think his name, some villain. Adam. So it's a cosmic kind of villain.
Okay.
And then now you have Hercules in this one, where we're not going to get to him for like 4-something movies, maybe never.
He is from Ted Lasso, the actor from Ted Lasso. I like him.
But it definitely does seem aimless. Like, I was really hoping with the end of with WandaVision, really hoping that Wanda would be the big bad of the entire MCU and slowly built up.
Yeah.
That would have been so cool.
Agreed.
But they just kind of spent it. It's like, oh, all right, it's gone now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think it's a little aimless. The MCU now, at this point, is real hit and miss. Like, sometimes they have a Spider-Man...
No Way Home?
No Way Home. Great. Awesome movie. Then you got a Shang-Chi, which is like...
It's all right.
It's all right.
Yeah. Now, well...
But then you have, like,
this
Black
movie,
Widow.
though,
Like,
This movie made $300 million over the weekend. It's still uber successful in the box office. It's Marvel.
It's still
Marvel.
MCU.
Still MCU. But the reception of it, interestingly enough, the critics seem to be more critical of the movie than the audience.
Yeah, tends to be how it is, though, normally.
Typically with MCU movies?
Yeah, generally. Most people
You're probably right, yeah. But critics gave this, like on Rotten Tomatoes, it's 68% for critics, 81% for the audience. On IMDb, it's a 7 overall. So the reception I've seen is that people seem to be disappointed. It's not as good as Ragnarok, but it's still, like, people are saying it's either fine or it's hot garbage from what I've gathered.
Yeah, I guess I'm on the fine. Like, it's okay. I'm mostly just disappointed because I thought Taika Waititi could do much better.
Yeah. Well,
unfortunate for like trying to be an interesting episode to a podcast and coming out of it just like milquetoast of like
very milquetoast.
If you like it more, like honestly, I could see someone like really liking this movie because the humor is right up their alley.
Yeah.
Cool for you, right? The humor hit. For me, the humor didn't hit so well, so not as much.
I mean, one of our subscribers, Parzival, he tweeted out at us what his rating was of Thor: Love and Thunder. He gave it he said a solid 4.2 out of 10. So we're not far off. We're at a point of the rating system, and I'm interested to see if he used the rating system. I should ask him.
Yeah. So actually,
very cool.
I would love for people in the comments to give our rating system a try. Let us know what you thought of Thor: Love and Thunder, using the 5 categories of emotional impact, characters, plot, dialogue, and cinematography. Average those together and tell us what you thought of the movie.
Or just give it out of 10 and screw us. But please use them. Please, it would make our day.
We're trying to make our rating system a thing.
It would make us happy. it really gets us going. We're proud of our rating system way more than we should be. It's we meticulous. Okay, how do we get every single thing that encaptures a movie into just 5 categories that encapsulates your view? And there it is. So use it as you will, please.
Yeah. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe. Follow us on all our social media.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts if you're listening on there. Keep it up. Love you guys.
All right. Talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.